when I just want some mindless, just entertain me,
Sure.
having monsters and having a Witcher that's like slicing their heads open in like very dramatic fashion.
You're good.
That's entertainment.
3, 2, 1, punch it.
Could you jump to light speed in that tin can? Go back in time in the DeLorean. Will it crash or take to the sky? Tell me, smart guy, does it fly?
Welcome to Does It Fly, the podcast that puts your favorite sci-fi properties, inventions, and conceits to the test. I'm your mad scientist, Hakeem Oluseyi.
And I'm your pop culture expert, Tamara Krinsky. Time to dive into today's topic and see, does it fly?
Isn't that the best theme song you ever heard?
I love our theme song.
Got to find this for tin cans. Is that it? Welcome back to the Does It Fly podcast. I'm Dr. O with
Tamara
my
Krinsky.
wonderful co-host, Tamara Krinsky, and we are here to talk nerdy. to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the podcast where we look at your favorite gadgets and gizmos and abilities across the sci-fi and fantasy spectrum. And we ask, does it fly scientifically? Does it fly for the story? And does it fly for the vibes?
That's right. We might drop a spoiler or two, but we're not going to ruin the movie for you.
Well,
I mean, I'm talking about from our analysis. We're not doing no hating analysis. We're not hate analyzers. We're not critics. We are evaluators of story and reality. That's what we are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this all comes from a place of love of the stuff that we all love to debate about our favorite shows and all the stuff that happens on them. But no, this is we are sci-fi and fantasy fans, just
Yes,
like all of you. And so we sort of look at this as we start the conversation, and we hope that you guys will continue it in the comments. So as we talk about different things, if you've got an opinion on it, definitely let us know. There are also maybe things that we don't know that we ask for your help on too. So drop
Absolutely.
it on in there.
Drop it on in there. Today's episode is about eyeballs. So what I'm talking about is The Witcher.
That's right. We are going to be talking specifically about the Netflix series The Witcher, which started in 2019. There have been 3 seasons of it so far. At the time we are making our podcast, they are making seasons 4 and 5 of The Witcher. But this show has got a long established fan base because this is based on a set of books that was written starting in 1986. They were written from 1986 to 1999. There are 6 books and I think it's about 15 short stories by Andrzej Sapkowski, who is a Polish author.
Clearly.
Huh? What?
I said clearly. So back in 2011, I spent the summer working at Brookhaven National Laboratory on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions I asked was, why does everyone around here, why does their name all end in ski?
As a person whose name ends in ski,
Yes.
ostensibly, I don't know if this is true or if this is just sort of an urban legend, but ostensibly, if your name ends in SKI, you are initially of Polish descent. And if your name ends in SKY, like mine does, you are of Russian descent. So I don't know if that's really true. If any of you genealogists out there know this, please let us know. But that's at least the conventional wisdom.
Well, on that same note, you name experts out there, I have a good friend, a physicist named Ed Ratner. And Ed once told me, if you see a last name that ends in if you recognize the beginning of it, like Walker, it's British. But if you don't recognize the beginning of it, like Ratner, it's German.
I mean, rat's a word. I would think
Ratton,
that would be...
R-A-T-N.
Oh, R-A-T-N. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I get that.
Yeah. So I don't know if that holds, but yeah. If it starts with Olu or Ola, they're coming from Nigeria.
Hence the Oluseyi.
It's the Oluseyi. Exactly. So what about The Witcher and eyeballs? So The Witcher is not just a book. It's not just a Netflix series. It's also a video game. that has been around for a while. So The Witcher, it's canon now, and people have their opinions. And so if I violate something, please forgive me, because I never played the game, never read the books. All I know is the Netflix series.
Yeah.
So please forgive my ignorance, but I still love what I see. So let's get going. What are you saying tomorrow?
So yeah, and just, for people who may be new to the podcast, we will often look at franchises that exist across multiple forms of media. But for the sake of our conversation, we'll usually draw some boundaries, because if we were going to talk about it across the entire franchise, you'd be listening for a really, really, really long time. So today we are going to be focusing on the Netflix series, and we're specifically going to be looking at The Witcher's power of night vision. In this case, Geralt of Rivia, and how night vision works, what it does, how it builds his character. We'll first talk about whether the science of it flies. That's Hakim's specialty. I'll get into the story of it all. And then we'll kind of get into a larger does it fly for the vibes conversation. So Hakim, take us into the science of night vision.
Maybe we should switch on this one. I do the story and you do the eyeball science.
Dude, you got to give me a little bit of heads up. Although I will say I just got new glasses. So I've been thinking a lot about vision. So that's a whole other thing, because I'm having this very weird thing where I got new distance glasses and they changed my prescription. And when I put them on, it feels like I am suddenly standing 3 feet up in the air at the edge of a cliff.
Whoa.
It's really weird and trippy.
You sure those aren't some of that, have some of that technology from that other show we did, where the headset, what was that?
I don't know, but they said to wear them for a week. So I'm going to try to keep putting them on. But if every time I put them on, like, at a concert, when all of a sudden the performer will they'll be standing on stage and there will be a platform that just rises up, and suddenly that's literally what it feels like when I put them on. Like I've popped up onto a platform. So we'll see. But anyway, I digress. This episode of Does It Fly is presented by Razer Cortex, a free application that enhances your PC's performance and help you find the best deals to save money and find the most interesting game tools to enhance your gaming experience. Razer Cortex improves your PC's performance over the long run without expensive hardware upgrades required. The application also allows you to create custom wish lists for your most wanted games and then scan the internet to find the best deals for them. Razer Cortex even comes with a built-in reward system that allows you to access incredible unlockables simply by playing your favorite games. Check out razer.com/cortex to unlock your PC's full potential today. Science of vision.
Okay, so The Witcher is, I love how they've done this show in the sense of, I've done a little bit of acting myself. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. I wasn't trained in Juilliard. I was trained at the Voice Factory, San Francisco, California. And one thing that we learned about is, the better the backstory you create, the better you deliver the character that you're playing. And what I love about this particular franchise is the backstory, right? Of how the Witcher and Witchers become what they are. And I'll save that for you. But what ends up after they become what they are, they now have certain powers. They're physiologically different. They're tied into the world of magic, which I have always been drawn into from childhood, magic and paranormal stuff. Although I've never gotten into any of those games, that people play that have to do with magic and that kind of stuff. I've never done the geeky stuff, just the idea of it for me. One of these physiological differences is when their eyeballs become all pupil and you get this night vision, this superpower. And it made me think about the construction of the eye and the evolution of the eye. And it's one of those things where, the eye plays a big role in the debate of whether or not animals, as we see them today, is how they originated. There are those who feel like every species of animals created as is. Mm-hmm. And then there is what observing the natural world tells you, which is that there's this process of evolution through which changes build up. And there's different types of evolution, right? Most of us think of adaptive evolution, where you think of the environment shaping you. But, there's other forms of that change our forms other than that. But one thing that has occurred over and over throughout the animal kingdom is the eyeball, is the photon sensor. Earth is special by having a super thin atmosphere that allows us to be bathed in light from the sun.
Mhm.
And so the life forms on our planet began to develop mechanisms for sensing that light. We sense waves, right?
Mhm.
We have a wave detector in our ear. We sense different molecules with our noses and our tongues. And we sense photons with our eyeballs and our skin sometimes, right? I wouldn't call it seeing, but you can feel that the sun is on this side and not that side, right? It's not exactly seeing, but you get some data, you get some information from absorbing light energy.
For all that acting training, they teach you to find your light.
Find your light. Yeah,
Find your
yeah.
light.
You know what? I learned that from Tyra Banks.
Find a light, baby.
Smize and find your light. Those are two
Yep.
things.
Wait, let me see you smize. I want to see you
I
smize.
can't. I just know it exists. Like, I don't know.
I think you smize pretty well.
That's because I'm always smiling, right? So you haven't seen me as a subject of photography. I do well when I don't know a photograph is being taken. The second I realize that there's a camera present for photography, not film, moving film, I'm fine just being myself. But a still photography, something about it puts me in
I'm
weird
going
mode.
to disagree. You took adorable pictures in the Den of Geek studio at Comic-Con.
That's because I had your vibe with me, beside me. So I could, if I'm no, truly, you can vibe with humans, right? But by yourself there and they're like, go. Oh, now it's a problem. But let me tell you about the Netflix series. What I think when I see The Witcher, I think magic, adventure, monsters, and gore.
I didn't hear you say science in there.
No, because there's not much of that going on unless you're talking about how silver kills certain, I got a stainless steel sword for the humans and I got a silver sword for the non-humans, that
Right.
maybe that's the science. It's not really sciencey, but when I think about a show that I enjoy, those are elements of some of them. I like a good human story as well, but when I just want some mindless, just entertain me,
Sure.
having monsters and having a Witcher that's like slicing their heads open in like very dramatic fashion.
You're good.
That's entertainment.
So here's a question for you, right? So like sometimes when we're talking about the science of a device or conceit on a show, we'll talk about like, does this technology exist or could this really happen? Does it seem to be based on real stuff? In this case, and I'll get more into this in the story piece, but in this case, the night vision of Witchers is based on experimentation. And so, but I guess my question for you, like from the sciencey side is, let's just say this experimentation is possible. That's our story. What if? Like once it happens, the way that you see it deployed in the show, from a sciencey side, did that throw you? Or did you feel like, no, it's like sort of used appropriately, that like the way, getting maybe just a little bit back into the science of sight and how our rods and cones work and all of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at, suppose I wanted to give you that ability.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how they do it in the show, it's through beverages.
Potions. Yeah.
So I had this conversation at some point this summer with a scientist who's in that field, who's a biologist of gene splicing and everything. And the answer I got, I asked, and I didn't get an answer that I recall, which means it probably didn't satisfy me. And that is I don't understand how gene editing works, because every cell in your body that has a nucleus has a copy of your DNA. And so if I'm going to edit a gene, how do I get that in every nucleus? How does that work? I don't understand how that process works, but yet and still we know it does exist. We know that gene editing exists.
Calling all CRISPR scientists, please weigh in.
Yeah. How do you get it to manifest? Maybe it's a situation where it doesn't go into every cell and doesn't need to, but they, could I modify humans in a desired way via some mechanism? Could I have designer humans? I don't see any reason why not. Because evolution does take place, right? If you look at animals in different environments, they do adapt to those environments. Animals that live in complete darkness lose their photon sensors. They lose their eyes. Animals that become nocturnal, right? Like a lot of bats, either they go to sonar, which is a whole other, you need that vocal apparatus, and then you need the brain to decipher the signals you're receiving. Yeah. And you need bigger ears typically, right? And then you have animals like lemurs with these really big eyes because they're nocturnal. It seems like it makes perfectly good sense to say, oh, I want to create these superhumans. I'm going to do gene editing. What do I want to get? How do I want to change their physiology? Oh, I want to give them night vision. Here's the problem. There's night vision and there's night vision. All right. So if you've ever looked at a cat's eyes, or a person that has taken specific chemicals, like, just going to the doctor to get your eyes examined. They open your pupil completely, right? The thing about the Witcher is that their your iris is a sphincter. The muscles are a sphincter. It has circular muscles and it has radial muscles, right? And the process of opening it means that you're contracting the radial muscles and relaxing the circular muscles. When you're dilated and when you're contracted, you've flexed the circular and relaxed the radial, right? So the thing that's different from The Witcher is the fact that your iris does not extend to the white of your eye. So no matter what you do, you're not going to make you can make your entire iris go away and be all pupil, but you can't make your entire eyeball all pupil if you have a human hardware, right? Your eye the hardware modification does not allow, unless you have another set of muscles that pulls the iris even wider, right? So you have the internal iris
Sorry,
muscles.
just interrupt you for 1 sec in case not everyone is as familiar with the biology of the eye. The pupil is the dark in the center. The iris is the colored ring around it. And then
that's right.
There's the whites of the eyes. So sorry, just wanted to break that down for folks.
Break it down. I ever tell you what pops into my mind when I hear the phrase break it down?
No, what pops in?
DJ Lance Rock from Yo Gabba Gabba. Break it down.
Break it down.
See, this is how we know you've had little kids, because you mentioned Yo Gabba Gabba. So
absolutely. My son Hakeem, 19, he was in the Yo Gabba Gabba when he was a little tot. Yeah. So in the eye, you have the cornea in the front, you have your lens, you have the iris, you have the pupil where the light goes in, you have the juice in the middle. I think it's apple juice. That's not true. You have the retina at the back, and you have your sensing cells for sensing light, sensing color. You have your rods and your cones. And generally, if you're in bright light, your retina is sensitive. You got your optic nerve back there. So your eye will shrink down, right? Your retina will close. Your retinal sphincter muscles will close down to prevent light from entering, right? And when you are in a very dark location, they will relax so that you can let more light in and see. So, of course, could you create a human that has better nighttime vision? The first thing I'm going to tell you is if you're not outside at night a lot, you don't realize how good your night vision is to start, to be honest, right? So growing up in the woods, I used to walk through the woods at night as a kid. I wouldn't do that today. Right? I'd be scared of ghosts and monsters. But as a kid, I did it all the time, out in the middle of the night in the woods walking. And you can see pretty well most of the time just with the ambient light of the moon and the stars.
You can. You just have to, the important thing is if you've been in bright light to allow your eyes to adjust. Anytime you're going out and observing, if let's say you're going to go out and observe a meteor shower, the first thing they tell you is give yourself a little bit of time to let your eyes adjust so that you can actually see stuff that's dimmer. Because if
a lot of time. Yeah, and red lights only if you're going to need some light. The other thing that happens is something that you learn as an astronomer, a technique. The most light sensitive part of your eye is not when you're looking directly at something. And so we use a thing called averted vision. Like a lot of the things that you look at through a telescope, like a galaxy, star clusters, nebulae, you'll point to that sucker and you look at it and you see nothing because they're so dim. You see nothing.
Right.
And then you look off to the side and there it is. Now you see it. You're not looking directly at it, but you see it there and you can see it clearly, right? So it's like your eye is looking that way, but your mind is looking that way. What that means is our dark sensitivity is way greater than most of us even realize. So if you get dark adjusted eyes and you use averted vision, you can have night vision, but you can't make fast movements, right? You're not going to have fights using averted vision.
Yeah, that doesn't work so well.
That's not going to work so well.
You got to be looking at what's coming at you.
Exactly. You got it. Yeah. And the thing about the averted vision is it's a thing where it's like looking at a total solar eclipse. The second the moon covers the sun, you don't see the maximum corona. It sort of like emerges, even though it's always there and the sun is totally covered, you still get that effect. And it's the exact same way with averted vision. You look off to the side, then it like, whoom, it kind of like comes out over like a tiny amount of time. It's not just, oh, there it is. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that the ability to take a kid and start doing some gene editing, can it be done by beverages? I don't know. I don't understand how gene editing works in that way anyway. So, then,
from what I know, I don't think we're quite there yet. There's a lot of great stuff that's happening with gene editing. That's one of my favorite sciencey topics, but we're not quite there yet to be able to
human experimentation or modifying an eyeball.
Let's just say if there were human experimentation, we're not quite at the point where we would know how to specifically go in and make that particular mutation.
Exactly.
Yet.
Exactly. Right. So I'm not, I realize that we don't know how to go make that particular specific modification. But the point is, gene editing is something that's done. And we can, the other thing that we now know, of course, is that, it's not like that table they gave us, big B, little b, I forget what that's called. Quite often there are multiple genes that are involved, not a single gene where you flip But that being said, you can impact your physiology. Animals adapt over time. And so the question is, can we humans do what nature does? Can we do it specifically and fast, whereas nature does it slowly? Survival of adaptation to the current environment, right? Because that's the thing, is that if you take a group of humans and put them in caves, like Plato's allegory of the cave, your eyes are going to become useless. And so that is not the evolution. The evolution is, does your body take the energy that it uses for eyes and redirects it somewhere that it will be more useful to you, right? So that you have an advantage. So those who are still relying on their eyes aren't going to be able to survive so well. Those who are developing on things who are relying on other senses to navigate their environment, they may actually have an advantage in surviving and reproducing. And so eventually you end up eyeless, right? So it's like the human brain shrinking, right? Bigger brain is good, but it's still a lot of energy it costs. So if the brain can rewire itself to have less brain matter, but still do more stuff, then, that's what's happened. During Homo erectus, the brain size doubled, but over the last several thousands of years, the brain has shrunk, the human brain, right?
Well, and if you, in the shorter term, like just in one particular lifespan, if you look at a lot of the research and stuff that's coming out right now about perimenopause and the entire like estrogen cycle in women, there are several different spots that is occurring, right? Like when girls go through puberty, there's a whole pruning that happens. And then again, when women get to perimenopause and menopause, that is happening again. And it's this idea that like, you don't need as much brain power to think about the certain things anymore. So those things fall away, but then it leaves room for new things. So.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know about that. I want to look.
Just be careful. There's a lot of influencers out there who are trying to put lots of information online. So
I know,
research.
Man. When I look at these influencers, I was like, oh, please, young people, do not listen to any of their dating advice. It's not right.
Yeah.
All right. So all of this to say, The Witcher presents these ideas in terms of, it's kind of abusive the way they do it. It is abusive. There's magic involved. But could I see humans at a certain point basically modifying human beings? And this is post-birth through various means, it seems like that's technologically possible in the long run. Over time, that is something that could happen. So even though it's, I'll talk about this in part 3, whether or not how I feel about it.
Right.
I think scientifically, engineering eyeballs is basically what we're talking about for children, such that when they're adults, they have specific eyeball abilities. I say it flies.
All right. Eyeball abilities fly.
Because it already exists in the animal world, right?
Yeah.
Eyes have already done this for other species. So why not, if humans do get to the point where we can get very specific about, now I understand, if we do the genes this way, we get exactly what we want and nothing we don't want, right?
Right. Well, and it's interesting, like the fact that you just used the word species, right? Because, shifting over to story, one of the constant themes of The Witcher that they're always exploring is this idea of what exactly is a human and what exactly is a monster. And a Witcher, by design, is somebody who is supposed to track down monsters and kill them.
Wait.
Yes.
What about human monsters?
Well,
They're not the Venn diagram overlaps.
So the question, right. So exactly, that's kind of my point. Like the process to become a Witcher involves experimentation, involves a whole bunch of different trials. It is, it is not a natural process.
No.
And so in the show, they talk about, he refers to himself as a mutant, right? And so some people in the show are like, yes, you're still human. Other people are like, no, you're not.
Right.
And some people, I think, would
Yeah,
say,
but is that just prejudice and hate?
well, that's a good question. Some people would say this is a human monster, but that's kind of an ongoing theme. I mean, that is an ongoing theme of the show of what is the greatest evil? Where does a human turn into a monster? What is truly diabolical? What is not? That gets into kind of the story, what drives a lot of the story engine. And so, in thinking about like this idea of night vision and how does this particular thing help tell our story? Is it important? What I would say is looking, you referenced earlier sort of the origin of this. How does night vision and the process by which night vision is obtained contribute to character development? Like, our hero, Geralt of Rivia, his mom dropped him off with the Witchers to go through this process, because there are all these different Witcher schools. There are fewer of them now than there used to be, but dropped him off with his eventual mentor, Vesemir. And he went through all of these like heinous trials. And ultimately, a bunch of the boys that he went through this with did not survive. There's an episode where he sort of later goes
3 out of 10.
Yeah. And Geralt actually sort of is having these like dream sequences of his mom and is basically like, did you know this? Did you know this when you dropped me off? So you go through this whole process that in part is also meant to tamper down on your emotional response to things as well, so that you can be a better fighter, so that you're not startled, so that, you can do all this stuff. And you come out of that with a very tamped down emotional life. So we as viewers are then constantly rooting to see those little bits of emotion come out, especially in these, crucial relationships with Yennefer and with Ciri, who sort of form the surrogate family together. He's also sterile because of this.
You can still kiss.
You can still kiss. I said sterile. I didn't say not sexually active. Those are two very different things.
Is it an emotionless kiss?
I'll leave that to viewers to comment on that, because as all fans of The Witcher know, the bath scenes are a hallmark of this series, and Henry Cavill got in great shape for them.
I noticed that. I was like, whoa,
they
do that on Netflix?
They do whatever they want on Netflix.
I didn't realize that it was that kind of party. I never saw these particular, HBO maybe, but never Netflix. I've never seen.
Welcome to the Witcher party.
Okay.
So I would say, that the way that he obtains night vision factors into the storytelling in a big way. And that's important. And even though we don't necessarily see night vision activate, every single episode, that backstory is really important. And then when you switch to like the fighting piece of it, and sort of when we do see it in action, sometimes it's because he's underwater, sometimes it's because he's in a cave, sometimes it's because he's in a dark castle fighting off, forces. But the way that we see this happen is, so he's got the yellow eyes, right? Those are that's part of what was done
White
to
hair,
him.
yeah.
And then what happens is we see him take the potion. And the potions differ between the games and the books and the TV series. It seems to be kind of, there's definitely some cat potion lore in there. There's another potion that seems to be crossed with in the TV shows, but in the TV show. But basically he takes it, and that's when his whole eyeball goes black, as you were saying before. Not just the iris becomes full on black, but the entire thing. No more whites of the eyeballs.
Right.
But that ostensibly gives him this enhanced night vision. Taking the potion also increases his strength. It increases all of his senses. And so in some ways, we as the audience members get cued as to how to follow along in the story. Oh, this is going to happen now. And it also takes us down that path of believability, because how is he going to fight against 100 soldiers? Well, no matter how good a swordsman he is, he's going to take his potion, and then he will be much, much stronger. So there's...
Oh, man. I love the fight scenes. I just got to say.
Yeah. The fight scenes are amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And then it also helps differentiate him from other beings, because you've got other magical creatures, right? Obviously you've got all the different monsters, but you've also got mages. And witchers can do spells kind of using signs to do more basic spells. Those don't really stand up against the mages and the sorcerers. So, the fact that he's able to do some other things. But I thought it was interesting, too, when I was taking a deeper dive into this, I was reading some interviews with Henry Cavill, and he talked about how this whole process happened. Somebody asked him, was it hard wearing the contact lenses to create the yellow and then everything else? And I guess for the most part, it wasn't a problem for him, except at one point when they were shooting on location and some volcanic dust got behind them.
Ooh.
Right.
Oh.
So I'm going to read a quote from him. So, all right. I know there have been a lot of questions about cat's eyes and all sorts online. For me, this is Henry Cavill speaking, for me, his eyes had to look like normal human eyes unless he's staring into direct sunlight, where he has the ability to contract his pupils into a cat's eye so he can gain an advantage against an opponent in direct sunlight. I wanted it to look slightly terrifying, but also a little enthralling at the same time. And that color that we eventually landed on was perfect for me, because when I walked up to people, they were a little bit like, ooh, I feel like I can't look at you. But then they couldn't look away at the same time. And that was the exact response I wanted. He's a mutant who goes around killing monsters, and there's stories of him killing bunches of people back in villages. I wanted him to have that fear factor as well as that, but I can't look away factor.
Yeah. Accomplished.
Mm-hmm. And for me, when I think about that kind of stuff, that's where I say this is something that helps make the story fly, because it factors so much into the backstory of the character, the physical look of him, his relationships with other people. So I would say from a story perspective, the night vision flies. I see it flying.
Yes. And I think that as a storytelling device, the eyes, the window to the soul, right? They mean so much in human communication. And I think even in acting, what I learned in my acting masterclass last month with a real actor was how important the eyes are to being present in the scene and in the character, and it grounds you. And I think that's it's a clever way of getting this across without having to be so explicit about it, right? It's a visual, visceral response. You have your uncanny valley response. You have that looks familiar, but not on a human response. Yeah. But I tell you, going back to the story and the vibes, man, these fight scene vibes, the way they do them, in a way, it has that fast pacedness of John Wick, but John Wick is using guns and this dude is using swords. So that artistically brings you so much more dance, so much more of a dance.
So here's a fun fact. Henry Cavill does all his own stunts in this.
Ooh.
Every single frame is him. And he apparently insisted on that because he was like, look, this is what my character goes through. So this is what I would go through. So even like they don't use stunt doubles at all for him. Like even if you just see his hand in something, well, that's him.
Wow. Yeah, he's committed. Yeah.
He is very
he's not
committed.
in his cushy trailer over there like, let the hand double do that one.
No. Now, of course, I don't know if you know this, but he's not doing the next 2 seasons.
Oh, no, I did not know that.
Yeah, Liam Hemsworth is taking over as Geralt. So,
okay. All right, not bad.
Yeah, no, there was if you look online, there's a really nice handoff between the two of them. There's no animosity. It's a very like kind, lovely.
Yeah, but the thing is when you nail it with casting and then you're like, we're going to change, it's like, don't do it. Right. But then, Hemsworth, that works. That's not.
I got no problems with Liam Hemsworth. We're all good.
Yeah.
Things I like to see on screen. But something I've been thinking about with The Witcher is sort of like when we're talking about like, does it fly for the vibes and whatnot, is almost this larger idea of does enhancing abilities in humans fly on like a bigger level, or is that something that kind of goes against what it means to be human and what does it mean to be
ethics human? It depends on where your ethics lie.
Yeah.
But the fact that humanity is divided into nations and we don't all have the same laws, I could see us going in this direction as humans because of the technological capability of doing it. But I now think that with robotics and AI and drones, there's no need for it anymore because the first place someone would do something like this would be in warfare, right? You'd make your super soldiers type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to say, like watching The Witcher, watching Geralt go through the process of, in some of the flashbacks, and then actually there's an anime movie that you see the process as well with his mentor. Like it kind of reminded me of the super soldier process that you see Captain America go through. Yeah.
Listen, I was in the military. I was in the Navy. I knew SEALs and former SEALs.
Yeah.
And, it is a transformation process. It is a process of transformation. I wasn't in long. I was just 2 years, but my sister couldn't believe how neat I was after I got out, right? Being the dirt ball I was when I went in.
If I could be genetically enhanced so that I could be a neater person, I would so want to gain that ability. Because while I am very organized in my thinking, you take a look at my car or my purse, and that is a whole different thing.
You ain't got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. You gotta let somebody... My PhD advisor, Art Walker, the late great Dr. Arthur Bertram Cuthbert Walker II.
Yes.
His office was famous. Because literally there were stacks that were like 5-6 feet tall. There was no floor. You had to like take a path through there. And I would never say nothing about it. One day he said to me, he goes, yeah, they say a lot about, people talk about my office a lot, but I always put it this way. Oh, because you know what it was? He was like, oh, yeah, I think he would talk about something. And then he'd go into a stack and pull out a paper and it was the right one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, it's just my filing system. You could do more work on the front end or on the back end. And I do it on the back end, but it's not that much work because I know where everything is.
That's the thing. My philosophy is like, if it's all laid out, then you can see it and you know where to find it.
Exactly. That's what I do for things that I have to revisit, like a bill I need to pay. If I don't leave that sucker out and visible, it's gone, right? Yeah. I'm going to forget about it. Bill late. But listen, I think that if we were in a world of monsters, I would want one of those Witchers. Now, the process for getting to the Witcher, I don't like it. All of these, I like the Umbrella Academy, but why do we keep coming up with these ideas of let's get a group of kids and torture them and abuse them and turn them into these adults that we can then use as weapons? You know,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
I
that,
love
right?
babies.
Well, there's like, I mean, look, in real, this question of like designer babies keeps getting
Yeah.
tossed out into the ether of like, if you could give your
No, they will do
unborn
that.
child an enhanced
Yeah.
something or other, like, would you? Should you be allowed to do that?
You know,
Like,
people will if they could. Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine what they're going to do with eye color? People
Oh
are going to
my
go
God.
all over the place with that one, if possible.
If there were an unnatural, I'm using unnatural in quotes, if there were an unnatural eye color that you could have, what
Yeah.
would you want it to be?
Red,
Red.
crimson. Yeah, crimson
Interesting.
iris. Well, that could look like blood. So maybe that's not the way to go. Purple then. Purple
Yeah, I
iris.
kind of gravitate towards like a purplish.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
like
I
a
know
lightish
that
purplish.
They always
Like
used to say that Elizabeth Taylor had violet eyes, but not really.
really?
Yeah, that's how they referred to her eyes. But
Wow.
but yeah, but I would say maybe like a purplish.
How about ultraviolet?
Maybe. Or maybe I would just want my eyes to glow.
For all of you, right? That's a good one. For all of you who don't know, human eyes cannot see ultraviolet. So if my eyes were ultraviolet, some insects could see my irises, but you would not.
That would be pretty freaky.
All black, just like The Witcher.
Right. So where are we falling? Where are we falling on does it fly for the vibes when it comes to
The Witcher.
The Witcher and this larger idea
Oh.
of like
I wasted water on myself. Okay.
enhanced abilities and like
Yeah.
do we think this is a good thing that should be in the world? Do we think this is not a good thing that should be in the world? What's your definitive answer there?
Yeah. Free of the way of getting there, I like it, right? If there's a world of monsters, I want witchers around who can take them out. I don't want children tortured to become witchers. If you're over 18 and you volunteer for it, that's like special forces, right? You're volunteering to be tortured, right? It's like pledging a fraternity when hazing was a thing. You're volunteering to be tortured. I'm all for it. It's like being a graduate student in physics. You're volunteering to be tortured. It's like having a baby, getting pregnant. You're volunteering to be tortured, right? If you as an adult volunteer to be tortured, that's on you.
That's
okay?
on you.
And so if that's the way I get my witchers, I'm for it. Because, I don't want, if the monsters show up,
You want to be protected.
I want somebody to take them out. I don't want to have to do it again.
You're not supposed to talk about that. Remember that stays top secret.
Did I slip? Oh, dang.
No,
What about you? What do you think? Because
I can get on board with that. I think like the method of getting there, that's kind of
Yeah.
shady. Not
shady.
so okay with that.
Yeah.
But I think that, as an adult, your body, your choice. You do what you want. The only thing I would say is that in addition to making it like an adults only kind of a thing, I would also say that there needs to be equal access, because when you talk about like class, like if you only have access to enhanced abilities because you have a certain amount of money or a certain kind of access, then that suddenly you're setting up society to be really, really,
which is how it's going to turn out to be
unequal.
anyway, right? That's in real life when we start doing the designer baby thing. That's what it's gonna.
I mean, yeah.
It's gonna manifest.
Yeah. I mean, healthcare is already so uneven, and I won't get into that because
Yeah.
it's depressing. But like, yes,
All right. So the science, the story, the feels. Sounds like what we're saying is The Witcher ain't so bad.
no, it sounds like the science flies, the story flies, and the vibes for human enhancement fly as long as you get there in a way that is both equitable and self-determined.
Love that. Self-determined. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. And people are
Self-determined
already doing that.
witchery flies.
Yeah, we're already doing it. We call it lip filler. We call it Botox, right? Same thing.
Same
You get
thing.
lip filler, you can destroy your dragon any day. Kiss it to death.
So many ways to slay a dragon. So many ways to slay a dragon.
Hey, thank you guys for joining our discussion about The Witcher and the science of eyeballs.
And thank you for putting your eyes on Does It Fly? Thank you for watching on our YouTube channel, if that's where you're consuming this. If you're watching on audio platforms, you can always find us at Does It Fly Pod on TikTok, on Instagram. If you want to find out more about the show and some of the stuff that we've talked about, our amazing producers put all kinds of resources on our website, which is doesitflypod.com. So you can dive further into the science and some of the behind the scenes stuff that we're talking about. And new episodes drop, what is it, Akim, every Friday?
Every Friday.
See you next time.